We're told from childhood that being good is the key to success. Be honest, be kind, play fair, and the world will reward you. But is that really how life works? Look around. Have you ever seen someone who always follows the rules, works hard, and treats others with respect only to get overlooked, betrayed, or taken advantage of? Meanwhile, those who manipulate, deceive, and break the rules seem to rise to the top. Why does this happen? Niccolo Machiavelli, one of history's most controversial political thinkers, believed that pure goodness is a dangerous illusion. He saw that those who rely only on morality, without understanding power, often become victims. He warned that the world isn't governed by fairness, but by strategy, influence, and control. Think of the workplace. A hardworking, kind employee believes their dedication will get them promoted, but then they watch a manipulative colleague take credit for their work and move up the ranks. In friendships, the person who always gives and never says no becomes the one people take for granted. In relationships, the kindest partner sometimes ends up being the most disrespected. History is filled with examples of good people being crushed. Julius Caesar trusted his friends until they betrayed and killed him. Socrates believed in truth and reason until he was sentenced to death. These men weren't weak, but they failed to see that morality alone doesn't protect you. So, does this mean you must be ruthless to succeed? No, but it does mean that goodness must be paired with wisdom. Kindness without strength invites exploitation. The key is balance in knowing when to be compassionate and when to stand firm. Because in a world that doesn't always reward virtue, survival depends on strategy as much as it does on morality. But does this mean morality has no place in power, or is there a way to balance both? In this video, we'll uncover Machiavelli's shocking lessons on why blind goodness fails, and how true wisdom requires embracing the darker side of human nature. Imagine this: you're in a workplace where you always play by the rules. You help others, avoid office politics, and believe that being kind will naturally lead to success. But then, you see someone less competent, someone who bends the rules, manipulates situations, and takes credit for others' work, get promoted. Frustrating, right? This isn't just bad luck, it's a pattern seen throughout history. Machiavelli warned us about this very danger. He saw that people who rely solely on moral purity, those who believe that being good is enough, often become victims of those who are willing to do what it takes. While society tells us that good always wins, reality proves otherwise. Take the story of Julius Caesar. He was beloved, a leader who wanted to do right by his people, but his trust in others, his belief that loyalty and kindness would protect him, led to betrayal. His own friends, men he had shown kindness to, stabbed him to death. Why? Because power doesn't reward purity, it rewards strategy. This doesn't just apply to politics or history. Think about friendships. You may have a friend who always gives, who never says no, who tries to please everyone. Over time, they become the one people take advantage of. They're the ones left out, drained, wondering why their goodness wasn't enough. The truth is, moral purity without strength is like a shield made of glass. It looks strong, but under pressure, it shatters. Machiavelli understood that to survive, one must not only be good but also be wise, strategic, and at times, even ruthless. So, does this mean goodness has no place in power? Not at all, but it must be balanced with intelligence. Being good is admirable, but without the ability to protect yourself, it becomes a weakness. The key is to understand when to stand firm, when to be strategic, and when to recognize that not everyone plays by the same moral code, because in the real world, the game isn't won by the most virtuous, it's won by those who know when to be kind and when to be cautious. We're told from childhood that kindness, honesty, and fairness are the highest virtues, but what if I told you that, in certain situations, these very qualities can lead to failure, betrayal, or even destruction? History and real life prove that sometimes, the only way to survive or succeed is to embrace what many would call a necessary evil. Imagine you're running a business. You have a long-time employee who is kind, hardworking, and well-liked, but their performance is dragging the entire company down. You know that if you keep them on, your business might suffer, affecting the jobs of many others. The moral choice would be to keep them out of loyalty. The strategic choice, let them go. It's a difficult, even painful decision, but one that ensures the survival of the greater whole. This is the art of necessary evil. There's a fine line between being ruthless and being cruel. Cruelty is unnecessary harm, driven by ego or sadism. Ruthlessness, on the other hand, is about making hard choices that ultimately serve a greater goal. This is a principle understood by leaders, entrepreneurs, and even great revolutionaries. Take Steve Jobs, for example. He was infamous for firing employees without hesitation, shutting down projects abruptly, and making decisions that many saw as harsh. But was he cruel, or was he ensuring Apple's rise to dominance? His willingness to make difficult choices, to prioritize the vision over personal attachments, is what made him legendary. Even in history, figures like Winston Churchill had to make ruthless decisions during wartime. His leadership involved sacrifices, sometimes making deals with dangerous allies, or allowing hard-hitting strategies that cost lives. But those decisions ultimately led to victory in World War II. Was he a monster, or was he a leader who understood that, in desperate times, morality alone isn't enough? Let's flip the perspective. What happens when someone is too kind, too trusting, and unwilling to make tough choices? Often, they become a victim. Think about the friend who always lends money but never gets paid back, the employee who works overtime without recognition, the person who stays in a toxic relationship because they don't want to hurt their partner's feelings. Their kindness, while admirable, is also their downfall. Machiavelli famously said, "It is better to be feared than loved." If you cannot be both, he wasn't advocating for cruelty, he was pointing out a fundamental truth. People respect strength. If you rely solely on goodness, you give others the power to take advantage of you. But if you balance kindness with the ability to be ruthless when necessary, you command both respect and authority. The key to making ruthlessness a virtue is intention. Are you making a hard decision for the sake of power and control, or are you doing it to protect something greater? The answer determines whether your actions are justified. If someone repeatedly takes advantage of your kindness, it's not evil to set boundaries, 7 if that means cutting them off. Leaders must sometimes make sacrifices to protect a larger vision. A captain must abandon excess cargo to keep a ship afloat. A general must retreat to win the war. Tough love is a form of necessary ruthlessness. A parent pushing their child to succeed, a coach who demands discipline, or a mentor who delivers brutal honesty may seem harsh, but they foster strength in others. True wisdom lies in knowing when to be compassionate and when to be unyielding. The best leaders, thinkers, and even friends are not blindly kind or mercilessly cold. They are both, depending on what the situation demands. So, ask yourself, when have you held back from making a tough decision because you feared being the bad guy? What opportunities have you lost because you were too afraid to say no? If goodness is your strength, that's admirable, but don't let it be your weakness. Because in a world that doesn't always reward pure virtue, knowing when to be ruthless isn't just a skill, it's a necessity. Imagine you walk into a room full of people you don't know. Within seconds, judgments are made about your confidence, your authority, and whether you are someone to be respected or ignored. What if I told you that how people perceive you could determine your success or failure in life? And that, in many cases, being feared is far more effective than being loved. We're often taught that being liked is the key to success. Be kind, be agreeable, and people will naturally support you. But history, psychology, and real-world experience tell a different story. In the battle for influence, it's often the feared, not the loved, who wield real power. Think of the most influential leaders, CEOs, or even characters in movies. The ones who leave the biggest impact are rarely those who seek approval. Instead, they project strength, unpredictability, and dominance. Take Elon Musk, for example. His relentless work ethic and ruthless decision-making make people respect him, even when they disagree with him. The same goes for historical figures like Julius Caesar or modern political figures, who command attention through sheer presence and strategic moves. Fear works because it plays on a fundamental human instinct: self-preservation. When people fear you, they hesitate before crossing you. They calculate their actions more carefully, ensuring they don't become your enemy. This isn't about cruelty or unnecessary intimidation, it's about setting a tone that establishes authority. Let's look at a scenario from everyday life. Imagine two managers at a company. The first is friendly, always accommodating, and avoids conflict at all costs. The second is strict but fair, making tough decisions without emotional hesitation. When a crisis hits, who do employees take seriously? The first manager might be well liked, but their inability to assert authority makes them easy to ignore. The second manager, though perhaps feared, is respected. Their word carries weight, and their decisions are followed without question. This applies beyond the workplace, in relationships, friendships, and even social circles. The person who is too agreeable often becomes the one people take advantage of, but the individual who commands a level of fear or people know will set boundaries and enforce consequences is the one who is truly respected. Niccolo Machiavelli, the Renaissance thinker known for The Prince, famously wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose." But why? Because love is conditional. It's based on emotions, loyalty, and personal preference. Fear, on the other hand, is rooted in logic and survival. A leader who is loved can be betrayed the moment it's convenient for others, but a leader who is feared ensures that betrayal comes with consequences. This principle has been used by rulers, CEOs, and strategists throughout history. Even in politics today, those who command fear shape policies, while those who rely solely on love often struggle to maintain influence. Does this mean you should be ruthless and intimidating all the time? No, being feared without respect turns into tyranny, and tyrants eventually fall. The key is to find a balance, set projecting strength while remaining fair. Never be unpredictable just for the sake of it. Fear works best when people know you are capable of decisive action, not reckless behavior. Enforce boundaries with consistency. If people know there are consequences to crossing you, they'll think twice before doing so. Don't seek fear, command it naturally. People can sense forced intimidation. Instead, let your actions, decisions, and confidence establish your authority. But fear alone isn't enough. There's another level to power on that doesn't rely on brute force, but on something far more cunning: manipulation. The truly powerful don't just inspire fear, they control perception, bending others to their will without them even realizing it. In the next section, we'll uncover the hidden tactics of the world's greatest manipulators puppet masters and how they outsmart the virtuous time and time again. Imagine a chess player who follows the rules, plays with integrity, and trusts their opponent to do the same. The other, they manipulate the game, anticipate every move, and deceive when necessary. Who do you think wins? History is not written by those who are simply good, it's written by those who understand power. The world has always been controlled by the cunning, the ones who pull the strings while others naively believe in fairness. But how do they do it? And more importantly, how can you recognize and defend yourself against these puppet masters? Good people believe in fairness, honesty, and integrity. These are admirable qualities, but they also make them predictable. A person who plays by the rules assumes others will do the same. This is their greatest weakness. The cunning, on the other hand, thrive on unpredictability, deception, and psychological warfare. They don't just react to the game, they control it. Consider workplace politics. A hard-working employee assumes their dedication will be recognized. Meanwhile, a manipulative colleague builds alliances, spreads just the right rumors, and positions themselves as irreplaceable. When promotion time comes, who wins? The one who played fairly or the one who controlled the perception of power? Ever wonder why some people always seem to come out on top? Even when they make mistakes, it's because they control the story. Politicians, CEOs, and media moguls shape public perception so that even their failures appear as victories. The cunning understand human emotions better than anyone. They know when to appear weak to gain sympathy, when to use anger to raise support, and when to create fear to establish dominance. Think of leaders who manipulate crises to push their agendas while everyone else is too distracted to notice. The virtuous often focus on short-term justice. Perhaps the most powerful tool of the cunning is their ability to weaponize goodness. They make the virtuous feel guilty for standing up for themselves. They twist morality so that doing the right thing becomes self-destructive. Ever noticed how manipulators make you feel bad for calling out their behavior? That's by design, hoping their honesty will be rewarded. The puppet masters, they think years ahead. They build influence, plant seeds of doubt in their opponents, and strike when the time is right. Figures like Napoleon and Machiavelli understood that perception. Think about major business mergers. While the public sees fair competition, behind the scenes, executives manipulate negotiations, crush rivals, and rewrite rules to benefit themselves. Not just virtue, Jake power. They played their enemies against each other while maintaining the illusion of integrity. The friend who always plays the victim, making you feel like the bad guy whenever you confront them. That's manipulation in action. Yes, but it requires a shift in mindset. Being good doesn't mean being weak. Strength and strategy are not enemies of morality. They are its protectors. To survive in a world where manipulation exists, you must learn to recognize it. You don't have to become a puppet master yourself, but you must know how they think. This brings us to the ultimate question. Can you be both good and strong? Do you have to abandon virtue to survive? Or is there a way to balance morality with power? In the next section, we'll explore how to walk the fine line between integrity and dominance, mastering the game without losing your soul. Imagine a world where kindness and power go hand in hand, where the noble don't get trampled and the strong don't have to be ruthless. Sounds ideal, right? But reality tells a different story. Too often, we see good-hearted people being taken advantage of while the cunning rise to the top. So, is it even possible to be both good and strong? Or does power always corrupt, leaving goodness behind as a casualty? This question isn't just philosophical, it affects every aspect of life. From the workplace to personal relationships, the struggle between morality and strength shapes our decisions. If you've ever felt that being fair made you weak, or that standing up for yourself meant sacrificing your values, then you already know this battle firsthand. Many of us are taught that if we do the right thing, everything will work out, but reality is far more complex. Good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. History is filled with well-meaning leaders who were crushed by those willing to play dirty. Consider the fate of Julius. Caesar respected, powerful, but too trusting. His kindness did not save him from betrayal. In everyday life, the same pattern repeats. The hard-working employee assumes their dedication will be rewarded until a more manipulative colleague takes credit for their work. The kind-hearted friend keeps forgiving toxic people until they find themselves emotionally drained. Being good isn't the problem. The problem is believing that goodness alone is enough. So, if goodness alone doesn't work, does that mean we must become ruthless? Not exactly. The true key lies in combining virtue with strength. Here's how. Set boundaries without guilt. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. Saying no, standing your ground, and demanding respect are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of self-respect. Master emotional control. Weakness isn't about kindness, it's about being easily manipulated. The moment someone can provoke you into reacting, they control you. Strength means choosing your response wisely, never letting others dictate your emotions. Understand power dynamics. You don't have to be ruthless, but you must understand how power works. In every interaction, there are unspoken rules. The strong know when to assert themselves, when to stay quiet, and when to strike. They don't just play the game, they understand it. Use strategy, not deception. Machiavelli argued that power often comes at the expense of morality. But what if strategy could be used in service of good? The wisest leaders and thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Sun Tzu understood that true strength lies in calculated moves, not blind aggression. We've all heard the phrase, nice guys finish last, but that's not entirely true. Weak nice guys finish last. The ones who mistake passivity for kindness, who fear confrontation, who think morality means letting people walk all over them, they finish last. But those who are both kind and strategic, they finish first, because they know when to be gentle and when to be firm. So, can you truly be both good and strong? Can you wield power without losing your soul? Or is every act of strength, no matter how noble, just a step toward corruption? That's the question you must answer for yourself, because in the end, power isn't something you can avoid, it's something you must learn to master.